Hello and welcome for the very final time to the highlight event of Accenture's Sustainability 24 Day. We are at the end of a 12-hour epic marathon of virtual live global debate which has started in South Korea and Japan this morning, 12 hours ago, travelled across the world and across the continents from Australia, Japan, Korea and Singapore to Europe and then across the Atlantic to North America. Without one person getting on an aeroplane. This is all part of Sustainability 24, setting the agenda in terms of sustainability. I should also tell you as well, we've gone through topics as well, not only just continents and geographically. We've moved from intelligent cities through sustainability from the Asia-Pacific perspective and megatrends and issues, opportunities and challenges of the low-carbon economy, including the global launch of the United Nations Compact and Accenture CEO industry study. We've gone through resource optimization, and now I'm incredibly pleased to tell you that we are going to end on a big high. We're about to see a video of a closed-door CEO conference hosted by the Committee Encouraging Corporate Philanthropy, which has been shared with us by the CECP, highlights from a session on business at its best, maximising long-term profitability and societal impact. Before we do, let me tell you that immediately after the video, we're going to be crossing to Paris and to New York and hearing from Bruno Bertrand, the Global Managing Director of Sustainability Services for Accenture, and in New York, Sander van der Noordende, who's the Group Chief Executive of Management Consulting for Accenture, as they give us some closing remarks at the end of what I say has been a magnificent and epic journey across continents and topics. Let me though tell you now we're going to be seeing Charlie Rose, the executive editor and anchor of the Charlie Rose Show, which is currently syndicated nationally to 215 PBS affiliate stations. And we're also going to be hearing him talking to Indra Nooyi, the chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, for whom we thank very much for this video, and Bill Green, the chairman of Accenture. It's going to be a fabulous video, and do stay with us afterwards as we talk about it and have some concluding remarks from Paris and from New York. But now it's over to Charlie Rose.
It's a great honor for me to be here and among so many distinguished people. We have two remarkable people. Indra Nooyi is chairman and CEO of PepsiCo. She has been the CEO since 2006. She has been, before that, the president and the chief financial officer. Under her leadership, PepsiCo company has had remarkable advances, and she has also initiated something that we will talk about this morning, which is performance with purpose, investing in a healthier future. And Bill Green is the chairman of Accenture. It is involved in today as chairman of the long-term business strategy for the company, and he represents the company around the world. He has been there for 34 years. Formerly, he was the CEO from 2004 to 2010. Please welcome Indra Nooyi and Bill Green. So let me just begin with asking each of them to, within the context of what you see as the responsibility of your respective companies and how you go forward addressing long-term profitability and societal impact.
Well, I think there's an interesting wave, really, and I think the timing is good. There's a wave that people are starting to understand that one of the characteristics of a high-performing company is its commitment to sustainability in the communities in which it works and lives broadly. I do think companies are challenged for how to do that. And I think it brings the challenge of how do you align what you're trying to accomplish in your company with what you're trying to accomplish outside your company.
People like us, people like me who grew up in an emerging market, in tough conditions, okay, we watched companies being a force for good in society, companies being a force for not so good in society. I watched firsthand, I worked for multinationals in India, really worry about societies. I watched multinationals dump toxic chemicals into rivers and into landfills. So companies have been both a force for good and force for bad, in my past experience. Fast forward to 2006, I become CEO of PepsiCo. The first thing that crosses my mind is, I want PepsiCo to be viewed as a responsible company in every society in which we operate in. And a responsible company has to start knowing that all of us work within the laws of limited liability from society, because we owe every society we operate in a duty of care. And if you start with that basic premise, you don't think about just shareholders, you think about stakeholders. You don't think just about the short-term and quarterly results, you think about long-term sustained impact. And your whole P&L looks different, because you say it's revenue, less cost of goods sold, less cost to society, add back the benefits to society. That's your net profit and loss. That's now a responsible company where societal impact is woven into the fabric of the corporation, and you can't deliver performance without worrying about societal impact. And if you don't impact societal impact, you cannot deliver performance. So it's a virtuous cycle.
Bill?
Well, I guess, we don't use the term corporate philanthropy, but this is very much about the character of our company. Not just what we do, but who we are as people and who we are as an institution. And that's the thing that sort of focuses. And if you look at our company, we're a human capital company. We have 220,000 employees serving clients in 120 countries. And so to get your arms around how to get a theme around our character, this has been particularly inspiring to us. And being a human capital company, our agenda is focusing on talent. And so we have really overhauled our whole agenda around this area, around a program called Skills to Succeed, which says, how do we take what we do for us, of which we spent $6.8 billion in the last 10 years training our people, and turn that to the outside, and how do we line up our core competency with making a contribution?
But responsible company is not about corporate philanthropy, because there's not enough money that we can give away to be viewed as a responsible company in 200 countries. And we can't do it sustainably. So the only way it can work is if we weave in responsibility into the core business of the company. That's how Performance with Purpose was born. And Performance with Purpose was nothing but saying, yes, we're always going to deliver great performance, but we're going to do this in addition to doing 3 other things. We're going to change our portfolio to now offer a range of products that are both fun and great tasting, but nutritious and great tasting also. Massive change for the company. We're going to worry about the environment in every country in which we operate. And we're going to really create an environment for our people where they can bring their whole selves to work. Major change for the company that was heavily performance oriented. So Performance with Purpose was born, and it changed the thinking of the company. Today, if we want to buy palm oil, the first thing we ask ourselves, is it sustainable palm oil? When we launch products, we say, does it meet our goals for reducing sugar before we launch a product? When we market a brand, we say, does the brand stand for something? When we build a plant, we ask ourselves the question, is it in a distressed water location or not? So we have a very different screen when we go off and do anything in the company. And that's what I think corporations should have been about, because we worry not just about the almighty shareholder, which critically important to us, but we worry about the societies, our employees, the communities. We worry about the impact we leave on everybody. And I think whether you call it Performance with Purpose, whether you call it shared values, whatever, I think we have to go back to why the corporation was created.
What's the best way to shift the focus from quarterly returns to long-term profitability? Does corporate America have to change the attitude of the financial sector and Wall Street about that?
I think it's both sides. You can't just change the financial industry. CEOs and companies and boards have to change too.
We do need some profiles and courage out there. I think we need to have leaders that have principles about their company, about who they are, that take the long-term view, and aren't afraid to stand tall and stand firm, that these are investments that are necessary for the long term, and this defines the character of our company, and in many ways, ultimately the value of our company.
If you believe in weaving in societal responsibility into the core mission of the company, everything you do, how you act, changes top down. How you think about doing business changes. So it's not something where you do business during the day and do philanthropy in the evening. It actually is woven into the fabric of the business. So every CapEx has a screen on environmental sustainability. When we have to site a new plant, We have a whole set of questions now that are very different than we used to have many, many years ago. So the whole thinking of the company has changed. We may walk away from opportunities if they don't meet this.
My assumption is this really has to come from the CEO, from the leadership. It's not some department of the company that's in to do good business. It is the leadership of the company has to articulate the commitment of the company.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you don't, if you're not passionate about this, don't bother. I mean, in many ways. And I think, passionate isn't memos and speeches. It's doing it, right? It's being out there. It's asking the questions, right? It's being part of what you're trying to do. Because that's what weaves it into the character. And that's, how, the key thing is, how do you inspire people, right? So that this is natural. And I think a lot of that inspiration has to come from the broad set of leaders across the globe in any company.
All right. I'm interested in the war for talent, you think, in terms of recruitment for talent for your company, an explanation of your commitment to the societal question is an important and decisive factor, whether they come to work for you or a competitor.
It is the most important deciding factor. It's unbelievable. Sometimes people are sitting on the fence, a highly regarded person, and then they agree to come to us for one reason. They say, we want to be part of the performance with purpose agenda.
Yes.
And that's been the single biggest recruiting tool that we have in PepsiCo today.
Yeah, I mean, we find the same thing. It's particularly, it started more in Europe from my point of view. Every town hall I do and our employees all across Europe, by the third question, I would get a question about our commitment to sustainability in the broadest sense. And it just, you just get a sense for the values of people that are making choices. And now that has really spread across the globe.
The people graduating from business schools or even undergraduate school are much more aware of what corporations do or don't do or what they can do. And so they're asking, how can they come to a company where they don't have to come to work, park themselves at the door, become a different person inside the company, then pick yourself up and leave to go home? Because everybody who works in our company is, first of all, a husband, wife, mother, father, daughter, son, whatever. And so the more you can marry who they are with what the company does, I think is much better than saying, just park yourself at the door, come back and run business one way, and then it doesn't matter what we do to your community or whatever. When you leave the office, pick yourself up and go home.
In our company, 76% of our recruits, by the third question, ask a question about our commitment to corporate citizenship and responsibility broadly, and 94% of the companies that do business with us ask us to share with them what we do on behalf of the communities in which we work.
How radically are societal problems changing the way you do business?
Internal operations, in many ways, is sort of step one. Step two is driving product design. Right. And step three is, because of that, the need or opportunity to reinvent the business model. When we look at our emerging markets, which is a place where, industry sees the opportunities for the future, it's going to cause you to rethink the design of the products, or more importantly, the delivery system of the service, education, healthcare, public services. And when you rethink that to a point, you realize the existing business model is not going to sustain you to operate in some of these new markets, and you're going to have to dramatically overhaul the economics of how that works.
I'll give you an example. Last week, we announced a program in Mexico, and this was about teaching 850 farmers in a very poor area of Mexico farm sunflower, grow sunflower. And then we're going to take the seeds from the sunflower and make high oleic sunflower oil, which is heart healthy oil, to fry the potato chips or put it in cookies and crackers. And high oleic sunflower oil is much better than palm oil because it has very low saturated fats. Now, that was a societal problem. Those farmers didn't have a way of living. They were very poor. In fact, they were trying to find their way to the United States. And there were security issues. So what we did was we said, it's good for the society because we put those farmers in business. We taught them farming techniques. We gave them the seeds. But then we have a closed-loop economic system where we buy the seeds back from them and assure them of a living. I think that if we had approached it as a societal problem only, we'd have written a check and said, here, buy some books and some food. That's a point program. It won't sustain itself. The only way to sustain itself is by, as Bill said, work that societal problem into your internal operations, drive the product design through it, and rethink our business model, because now no longer are we importing oil from Malaysia. We are actually putting these farmers into business and then creating this virtuous cycle. And we're trying to do this country after country so that we can have a very fundamental model in that country where society is improved and gives them means to buy all of our discretionary products.
I think learning is an incredible value that companies get out of focusing on these. If you think about the challenges we have around the globe, I think some of the next generation challenges on the delivery of service, healthcare, education, and so forth are going to be solved in the emerging markets, not in the developed markets. And the reason is the problems are so big and so acute. How do you educate 700 million people in India on the age of 17? You're not going to do it with classrooms, textbooks. You're not going to do it with last in, first out, and all this discussion we hear in the United States. You're going to reinvent the delivery model. And when you do, you're going to be able to refit those delivery models that you've learned in these markets of the future back to the markets that have got you here. And so the opportunity to learn by focusing on this area is just incredibly powerful for companies.
Hello everybody, I'm Bruno Berton here in Paris, and we're sort of entering the last stretch, the last 10 minutes to close this fantastic day. CECP 24, it was a great idea, and we've been through it, a fantastic 12 hours, 20 broadcast locations, over 440 individual broadcasting actions. We've targeted about 40,000 clients around the world, 40 speakers, 5 partnerships. We had more than 15 debates, 17 moderators, and a number of set interviews like the one that you've just seen. Fantastic program, as Ashley was saying before the video, from environment all the way to the social agenda, and across the world. This was a fantastic day. So a lot of learning for us, and what I would like to do is to ask Sander van Noordende, who's been at the heart of this initiative, because he founded the initiative that I'm leading today, to give us a few highlights of the day, starting by his view on the approach that Accenture has taken on sustainability, and how we're looking at it from a business perspective, and then we'll take a few highlights of the day and try to comment on the learning from our perspective and from our clients' perspective. So Sander, first point about if you can give us a perspective on how we came about launching sustainability services in Accenture.
Bruno, first of all, let me commend you and the team for doing a great job today, because this is really groundbreaking, using the new technology as you said, no mile on an airplane spent for this day, leveraging the latest technologies. I think really a job very, very, very well done by you and your guys, and thanks to all of you and to our guests during the day. I think this is just great stuff. And actually, it is also a good example of how we want to position sustainability within Accenture, because I think in Accenture we always have to lead the way a little bit. We have to be a little bit ahead of the game, and that's what we try to do. If I dial back 5 years in my previous role, when I was looking after the resources industries, oil and gas and metals and mining, I was maybe one of the first in Accenture who put this on the agenda by way of saying the third element of our strategy. We had 3 elements of our strategy, but a key element of our strategy was to help our clients prepare for climate change. And we have moved on from there. We have moved on from from defining sustainability as a narrow thing climate change and energy efficiency, etc., to a much broader theme as it is today, the context of labor, the context of the broader environment, how we do things, and actually today was a great example of that. We have also moved on from a resources-focused attention to a broader industry play. And I think the launch today of the UN Global Compact industry studies was a great example of that. So we always are trying to lead the way, and I think that's what we've done over the past years, and it's our commitment to continue to lead the way going forward.
Thank you, Sander. And so some of the highlights, I think we were discussing some of the key themes that came out, particularly from a business perspective in terms of innovation growth, maybe versus regulation and energy efficiency. Can you comment a little bit on that?
Well, for me, definitely a highlight was about the emerging markets, because there is still a thought out there with many people, the emerging markets, they care about themselves, they only want to grow and get a better life for their people, but that's not true. Our research has been showing consistently for the last 2 or 3 years that even in emerging markets, people maybe tend to care more about sustainability than in the mature markets. So I think that is definitely a highlight, and we saw that during the day in a number of occasions.
We heard also a lot about cities, and you were the first to create actually the Intelligent City Network in Accenture. Any reaction on that particular topic?
Well, it's good to see the momentum that the cities network is getting, because cities are so pivotal in the whole sustainability world. Cities drive the most CO2 emissions, cities drive consumption, cities drive transportation. And combining those agendas into one sustainability agenda across silos, energy, transportation, consumption, I think is so critical. So that's why we need to have those cities on board, and I was absolutely pleased to see my former hometown, Amsterdam, featuring today in the program.
There's also a theme about, where should change come from? Is it more sort of business driving, or should it be more government? And we've had a lot of, discussions around the different COP around that. I know you were in Copenhagen at the time. What's your view a little bit on the responsibilities of business and government?
Well, my view is change should come from all stakeholders, and all stakeholders should collaborate. Clearly, policy is extremely important. Policy, clarity around the policy, and sustainability of the policies is critical. Then businesses to take their responsibility, and I would say last but not least, consumers and citizens, who are actually the same, taking their responsibilities. So it has to come from all angles by ways of collaboration.
Well, I'll hold that thought about consumer. I'll come back to you to understand what you've done to your own sort of consumption patterns related to sustainability. But before we get there, you also mentioned that the role of technology was quite, important in most of the discussions, and particularly the link between with technology and some sort of changing behaviors. And I think it would be good to come back to your conclusion around technology as well.
No, I think there's two key things around technology 2 points that I would like to make. In terms of, an area that's close to my heart, and that's around the energy space, the technology is by and large there. We have the electric vehicles, we have the renewable energy, we know what a smart grid looks like. I think it's all about scaling, and scaling has to be done, in combination by governments and business, and then that will drive the technology development and will drive down the cost curve of the technologies. So technology is basically there. Scaling is now the challenge. Then closer to home as Accenture, of course, it's about the information technology. And actually there's 3 interesting technology waves going on at this point in time that can be leveraged perfectly into the sustainability space. And that's about mobility. All equipment equipped with sensors, etc., us using our mobile phones and tablets, etc., etc. There's analytics, the capability to analyze tons of data and make better and faster decisions, again with the sustainability criterion in the back of your mind. And then obviously, finally, last but not least, there's cloud computing that provides all the computing power to do all these things. So there's 3 interesting technology waves that sustainability agenda can benefit from, in my view.
Thanks, Sandra. You just heard from Bill and from Indra their perspective on the role of management. This is also something you mentioned on the UNGC session. The tone, the mindset. I think it's probably worth coming back to this as you were in that role and as a piece of advice as well for our partners and clients.
Well, I would say the tone from the top means everything. And I think Bill said it very well, as he said, it's not about speeches and memos, it's about getting into action, and it's about creating that mindset throughout a company, and its ecosystem of other companies, customers and suppliers, creating that mindset that sustainability is something that needs to be embedded rather than is something as a bolt-on or an afterthought.
So as I said, you've been on that journey for at least 5 years. So how much more sustainable are you today, Sander?
Well, I'm much more sustainable today than I was before. I moved to New York. I no longer have a car. That means that I'm using public transportation. I do admit that I fly every now and then, but by using the telepresence technology more and more, I actually also get to stay home more often, which is, by the way, not bad either.
Absolutely, and I think that was one of the key learning of the day. As you said, there's many people to thank. Of course, we had a few surprises along the day, but overall the 12 hours have been very smooth. I think a lot of great content. And I would like to thank the 45 people that have been involved today to try to make this a successful event. It's been, in that sense, a great learning. And I think, as Ashley was saying, there's lots of questions we have not been able to address that we will try to address on Facebook going forward. Sander, I know you're keen to watch the videos that you've missed today, so we're putting a lot of pressure on our team to try to get them out as early as possible. We've promised Monday at the latest, and hopefully we'll be able to do better than that. And I think on that basis, I'm just going to conclude this fantastic day and maybe just sort of go back to Ashley for formal closing. Ashley, you still on?
I'm still here. Thank you very much indeed, Bruno and Sander. It's 7 p.m. in London, 8 p.m. across Europe, and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And what it means is that we've reached the end of our 12-hour live broadcast. If you've enjoyed today as we have, then it is just the start. The debate continues on Twitter at #sustainability24, on Facebook if you search for Accenture Sustainability Services, and on accenture.com/sustainability24, where, as Bruno mentioned, all the sessions will be available for download and replay by Monday. As Bruno also mentioned, 50 speakers, 20 broadcast locations across the continents without one person boarding an aeroplane. It's an extraordinary, groundbreaking, unique and epic achievement. Sustainability 24, one day to set the agenda for business. We look forward to continuing the discussion, and we thank you for your company. Make sure you're here next time. We certainly will be. Goodbye.